Hi, good morning. Uh, so today I'll talk about some important things. We are moving to the next level. We have seen HTML, we have seen components. We have also going to understand what is services, when to use services. Also, we need to understand what are all the things that is generally required for a whole system to be built. Once you know that, then we'll see how we can integrate that in the actual coding. So overall, if you understand that any product that we deal with, for example, uh, whether it is an email or whether it is anything that is browser-based application, I'm doing a search here. This search, whatever I do, one, I can do it from with the existing data. Whatever the data that is available, I can do it. It is saying 25,000 total email, 50 are shown here. That means only I bound only 50 emails in my screen. The remaining, whatever the data you are seeing here as a number, that is all in the server. So when I do filter or when I do a search, I can do it only to the content that is available here or send it to the database, fetch the result from this 25,092. So which is ideal? Generally, we want when we give a search, we don't know, we are not worried whether all 25,000 are there here in the screen or it is coming from the DB. We don't bother about all that. Our aim is whatever we do a search, we expect that search to work exactly in this way it is expected by internally as a customer. So that means it has to go to the database. So that means database is somewhere else because that is not in your local browser. So from browser, I need to communicate to the database. This communication is a middle layer within the browser itself. We call that layer is called service layer. So what is the difference between a service layer and a component? Component, if you notice, if I just go back, if I notice the component, any component that you deal with, whether it is a login component, whether it is a register component, if you from the CS you can see that it's a component hierarchy where you have an option to select HTML selector, HTML, that is which template URL you need to use. It's an HTML style URLs. So for every component, you need this HTML reference. Without HTML reference, component is not ideal. Component is not complete. So when we say component, it requires an HTML code behind, that is that TS file, and that is where the communication happens between the HTML and this TS along with CSS file. All these files are integrated together to call it as a component, right? And so what is service then? Service, I don't need a HTML. So it is only an interface. And that service, whatever I create in service, that can be used in multiple users or multiple components. A service is an intermediate activity which effectively communicates or uh, communicates with external or internal with different component or same component. A service can be used. So service is not required to have a HTML. Everything, whether it is component, whether it is service, as per Angular is concerned, everything is injectable. I say the word injectable, that injectable is the word which enables whenever there is a change to the code or it immediately reflects it to the HTML. Any change, it immediately reflects to the HTML. So that reflection happens because it is injectable. All that is the primary difference between a component and the services. Services, I need only purely the class and inside some functions. These functions I can use it anywhere, any of the component as. You can have a multiple services. You can have a independent services for each component. That is up to you to decide. It is all depends on how much is the size, how you want to load, how you want to take that lazy loading concept. It all depends on that concept. You can design it. This service has multiple services. I'll just explain certain important things from a project, then I'll come back to the code. Most important thing that if you see any page, I'll just take a page. I use the page, say for example, test.thorough.com. In this page, you see a login, right? So this login, if I don't use the login, even though the page is registered, I should not go into the next page. For example, if I try to type in home here, it should not go to the home page. It should validate whether I have a credentials validated or not, even though home is part of the registry. That is also a service. These are all called authentication service. Right? These are all called authentication service. So service has multiple types. One is how you define your service. So previously in our case, if I put a register here or if I put a login here, without clicking that button, I can go to register page as well. So if I just type register, I'm able to go to register page. Right? It is, yeah, of course, register page you can go. Here also you can go to the register page because that doesn't require a validation. I don't know whether I've used the name register or sign up. So I just give a register. So I'm able to go to the register page. This is fine because still we have not gone inside the page. This is fine. But if I try to give a home page, which is supposed to happen after my login, home is also a part of routing concept. I should not go back to the home page. This is called authentication service. These are all called guarding. We'll introduce guarding as one concept where I validate whether I have logged in or not. So how do I know? How do I know whether I logged in or not? There are several ways to know that. For browser to know whether you have logged in or not, the reference of the login, you generally, this is called tokenization. We are also going to see all that concept. We see tokenization. What does it mean? When I log in and the login is successfully validated, I will issue a token. For example, in this case, I open a network call. In this network call, if I try to just give a valid username and password, in this click on sign in, you see a login page. Of course, there are a lot of components loaded. I'll just open a bigger page. So a lot of components loaded. In that, you just see here login. This login has a response, this response. This is an encrypted value. Actually, this is an encrypted value. You see this response. This response will have token. And this token will be published in the subsequent request. For example, get invert growth, get premier, any of the get that we do. It will, this is a get operation. This will have a header authorization token. This is the token. This token is received from this login. This token is received from this login data, and from this step, I'm passing the value as part of the header, as part of the authorization token. So when comes, system knows that you are having a valid data. You are come to the valid page and you are coming from the right place. So this one and referrer plays an important role to know that am I coming from the right place or not. So this is called authentication service. So That means every request, I need to send this authorization token. Then the same token may be going in every request. That means, can we code for every code? We have to put the header, add that authorization token, and then send it? No. It is called interceptor service. That is the next service called interceptor service. The first service I said, it's a reusable service, just a service. Second is authentication service. Authentication service ensures that whatever the whether you have a validity to access that page or not. That is, if you don't have a validity, you cannot access that page. I will redirect to the login. So that is, we call it as guarding, authentication service. The second one, after authentication received, every request that I generate from this page, it has to go with authorization token, whatever the name you can call it as. Some people use authorization, some people may say signature, some people may say some other name, up to them to use, whatever the name. Authorization default, it is available. Even though you see everything as a capital letter starting with, but actually in the behind the scene, everything is a small letter. Okay. So there is no space usually. It is a content hyphen space, accept hyphen language. There is no space between two words. It is a single word key value pair. So this authorization, to generate this authorization, I just take you through the code. That is called interceptor. Interceptor again is an injectable service. These are all called HTTP interceptor. I always pass the header, set authorization, and then token. That means whatever the code I write, the interceptor, HTTP interceptor will come into picture. He inserts that authorization code for whatever I send a request outside my system. He inserts that authorization code and he sends the request. So he adds that authorization code that is handled by the authorization interceptor. It is another service. This service is also called interceptor service. Implements HTTP interceptor. So interceptor, you can do it for request, you can do it for response. Any response you want to validate, you can do that. So whatever that comes into my system, that will go through this service first. After that only it will come to the UI. So that is called interceptor service. So these are all the name service only, but these are all the guard is the service that I was talking about, authentication. This is the service. Again, it is an activate service. So auth guard is the name that we have given. This is going through activate service. So routing, it is part of routing. So activate, and then I will ensure that when it goes through my system, I ensure whether he is having a proper login or not. If I don't have a proper login, I will navigate him to the login page. This is validation. Am I coming from the right place or not? Am I having a permission to access my page or not? I should not display all the pages to all the users. So this is guarding. We call it as activate. This is also part of routing concept. So can activate is the implementable class. Can activate, I can check whether I can activate this or not. If I can activate, that means I need to ensure my code is exactly matching or not. In my case, I'm checking whether the logged in or not. If he is logged in, I'm allowing him to go through. If he is not, I'm not allowing him to go through. Right? So if you are already logged in, for example, in my case, I just close this browser. I just close this browser. I am not logged out, please. I have not noticed that I have not logged out. I just close this browser. I log in again. If I log in again, that is test.taro.com. If I log in again, you can notice that I came back to my home page again. I am not asking you to do a relogin because I know my session is valid and you are there already. I know you are previously logged in. So I come back. That is what this page checks, whether he has logged in or not. If he has already logged in, where he was before, and go there. all this validation can be done at the God level. So can activate is another thing. It is also a service. Everything is an injectable service because these are all doesn't require any component. It doesn't require any component. It is by default available for the users to use. Okay. So this is your important things that you need to know. So we are keeping it as a separate services, etc. So another one called directive. Directives are important thing where you can use the tag name. You can create your own tag name and you can say this is what I want to pass on. So any messages that we are displaying, we are using directive alert.html, and directives are nothing but if I just click on component, it's a component selector thing, only HTML, there is no CSS. I have not given any CSS. Again, of course, everything is injectable. I'm using snack bar data. That is the component that I'm using, which I'm only this HTML will be shown on the UI. So it is not a real HTML, it is only injected HTML. It is like a pop-up, you can say, something like that. It will be in our case, it is, you can notice now, I don't know, I'll just see, sign out. I just put something at the rate hdf.com. You can see a pop-up message when I try to log in with the invalid login name, right? This invalid login name is nothing but that snack bar, one of the Angular material component. That is coming from this page, right? That message is coming from this page. So the message is transferred through this and message is coming from this alert component data.message. So it is a constructor, it is a public data, and this data comes through this. And alert is the way that we define it as alerts. So that is why we call this component in wherever it is. So that is how every aspect is very important from the Angular perspective. So right now we are trying to understand what is service, what is the difference between a service and a component. If you ask whether component is a service or not, component is also a service, but component has HTML and CSS as part of my component establishment. Whereas in service, injectable, it doesn't require that. In service, whatever we given it as a service, it is only injectable. So how do I create a service in my reality? How do I create my service? If I go to my project, I am in project 2, I think. I am in project 2. I just control C. So service ng generate service. You can just give a service and name of the service you can give. Whether you want an authentication service, you want an interceptor service, or you want a general reusable component service, right? Or you want a authorization, that is sending to the external world, middleware. You call it as a middleware. So any name you can give, you can create any number of service as well. So when I say service name, I just say, for example, I generally, in our case, we are using authorization service for communication between the external world and local. We use the authorization service as the word. Guarding, authorization guard is a separate service that we use. Interceptor is a separate service. We have this majorly used three services. So let me just put any name. I'll say reusable. Reusable as the name of the service. That means this service, whatever I write in this, it can be used by several people. What are all the such candidates? We will see as we go. So ng as a service I am making. So I created two components. One is spec is for component level testing, unit testing, reusable.service.ts. It has got created. I just make it as ng serve. I just loading that loading that entire page. I go back to the code. If you see here, that service has got created. reusable service. It's an injectable, and provided in root means it is applicable for all the components. That means the loading happens in the beginning itself. So provided in root means it is available for all the components. You can create a service within the component as well. Then this provided in root may not be required. And it is part of Angular core injectable. By default, I am using as an injectable service. That means this service, whatever I use here, it is an exported class, reusable service. Whatever I want to use it here, it is available for register as well as login component. That means it is exported, so you can do that. Like that, you can even create a reusable component. So you can create a reusable component. That means I want to call one small component outside my in other components. For example, you might have noticed in certain places where the session gets timed out, when you want to access some application, you will get a pop-up saying that please log in. In railway reservation, you might have noticed this. Hopefully, we all use the railway reservation ticket, where if you initial search and all, he allows you. When you want to book the ticket, it allows you to, with a pop-up, you have to enter your credentials. That pop-up is nothing but a reusable component, because that pop-up can come from any page. Anywhere there is a sensitive data, you want that credentials to be checked. Until then, you are allowing the users to use search, whatever. I don't need a login. But whenever you want to book a ticket, I want you to log in. Right? Whenever you want to do some activity like PNR or something, you want that login. So that login dialog it is called as a reusable component. That means any page, wherever you are, when you are coming to that particular requirement, you need to ensure that you have logged in. If you are not logged in, it will come up with a pop-up. That is another candidate reusable component. Right now, we are talking about reusable service. You can have a reusable component as a separate service. That component will have a HTML, everything will be there. But how do you display that HTML? I will leave it to a system to decide that. That is generally called dialog. In our Angular material, that kind of a pop-up is called dialog. So the dialog can be designed in many of the places. We will come to that as well. One is a simple alert message that we have just seen. That is one kind of thing that is called snack bar. Another is pop-up, like you want user to interact with your screen. Not only messages you are showing, I want that interaction to take place. That interaction we want a form kind of a thing where it has to communicate with the servers, etc. Then you call it as a dialog. Dialog, nothing but you have a backend reference, that is your main page wherever you are. I just open one more page in front of that by showing you the back page as well. And then you, as soon as you enter, I go back to the page from where I have been called, so that user will not have to go through multiple pages. So that kind of a concept is called dialog. That is called reusable component. So right now we are focusing on reusable service. So we created a service. What are all the service can be reusable? So there are dedicated service also. That means this component, only this service is used. You can have that as part of that component alone. Anything that is common, for example, logout. Logout I can logout I can do from any place. So logout can be one of the reusable service. I want some validations. For example, I want to check whether this array is having uniqueness or not. So I want to pass it to the reusable, get the output. So that anybody, everywhere, all the component, if that functionality is required, I can use that reusable script. Right? So the reusable scripts are such a way to be designed in such a way wherever more than one place you are calling the same functionality, then reusable script is the one of the candidate. I'll just show you some of the reusable components we generally use in our projects. So I'll just go to, I'll have the column called reusable. I created as a component because it has a component as well. In my case, it has a component as well. So Outlook, all connecting to the Outlook, everything is now, sorry, I'm in register page. Reusable page, get month short name, get month full name, right? I want to pass some number key. So give the key and then I get the exact tree, whatever the month full name or a month short name. So month can be a number or month can be a thing itself. So you can, month is a number, return month, right? Month is less than 1 or month is greater than 12, return month. You give a month, I'll return a short name of that month. That's a reusable candidate. History, anywhere you want to retain a history, it is a reusable candidate. Here I want to take the history, it is a reusable candidate, right? Plan details, when the user is getting a license, we want to check his plan, which plan he is in, that's a reusable candidate. So that means this can be called from many places, right? Predict or remove current month, that is also a reusable. Now right now we are not using that, I just marked it. Confirm dialogue, this is what I was saying, this dialogue is a, we call it as a reusable candidate. This is what the dialogue I was just talking about. So you can have that as well. So it's a reusable candidate. So this is a component level reusable, confirm dialogue. So whether it is yes or no, whether it is pass or fail, right? Why we have come up with this confirm dialogue is that snack bar was not working with iOS system. So we have to come up with our own dialogue. We generally use the dialogue that is coming from the browser, not snack bar. Confirm. The confirm is the dialogue we generally use in our code. For example, just to give you that example of that confirm dialogue in login component, or when I go to the register component, I'll just go to the register component. From register component, I want to log in, right? So in that we generally say let conf equal to confirm. We use this candidate confirm message. Are you sure? Are you sure you like to go back to login page? Right? Question mark. Enter. If true, then you use this. Right? Else, just don't do anything. Just don't do anything. That means you'll remain in that page. I just use confirm. This confirm, what the browser does is, browser recognizes this confirm. I am done it in register page. If I go back here in FX project, in register page, when I click on login, you will see a pop-up. So this pop-up is browser controlled pop-up. I'm using that browser variable confirm, right? This will, are you sure you like to go back to login page? Okay, cancel. I say okay. Then if I cancel, I'll remain in that page. I will not re-log in. I will not go to the login page. If I say okay, I'll go to the login page. So this kind of thing, these are all dialogue only. But this dialogue, some people may not like this dialogue. They want customized dialogue. So customized dialogue is what? That reusable component I'm talking about, right? So that is most important. So these are all some of the things that we are going to see in our live things. So register, initially we are going to register. That register has to save it in the DB. That is what we are preempting, what are all required things to take it to the DB. So as I said, you have to have your Postgres. We'll use Postgres. Postgres DB, please keep it installed by tomorrow. Keep it ready. That Postgres will try to access from UI as soon as the register page is done. So I'll just cut and paste whatever the component that we have it in the another project. I think we have it in project 1. I'll just go to new window. In project 1, we did something on that. I just copy paste that entire thing. I just copy paste this entire thing, Control C. Copy paste is okay. It is not that you should not do it or anything like that. You can do it. Copy paste this. I copy pasted the same. To ensure that I have the same TS file, copy paste the TS file or take all the components of the TS file. So take all the components, especially within this export. Make sure you copy paste all the things within that export. So within this component, I just copy paste here. Login. This is the register component. I remove that. I included this one. Already I've included. So I take that, paste it here. Okay. So paste it here. So I just component form group and all is not there. That also you can take it from here. Validators, etc., etc. You can take it from here. You can move it here also. Router is already I copied, so I just put it so that that error message doesn't appear. Right? And ensure that the module has that component added. So if you are not having, make sure that module is also copy pasted with whatever form modules. Right? Form field module, all this component. That's a module level. I'll put it underneath this. I copy paste to this project. Underneath this, I just copy paste. Also, I need to copy paste this areas as well. This area also, I just copy paste. Make sure it is done at the imports. Any module, it has to be part of the imports. Then you save it. Now your page is ready now. Whatever we have done it on the first class, that page is ready now. Right? I'll make sure compilation is through, passing. Compilation is passing. And then I just make sure you are able to access this. So this is what we have done. We are going to take up from service. First, we need to do an injectable service. When I click on registration, front-end validation to be done. After that validation, I need to connect it to my backend service. That service will return. That service is what we are going to prepare tomorrow. We will do it at the node level. We'll prepare that service. So having the database, registering that in the database, and bringing back that into the login page. So then how to interact between this page and that page through service, we'll do that. Another thing we noticed yesterday, this my project is not getting centered, right? Basically, this vertical align works only with line height attribute. It doesn't go to the middle without a line height attribute. So you need to add a line height attribute here. So instead of this, I just remove this. You use line height same as height. So in our case, it is 60 pixel. Same as height, then use vertical align. Vertical align needs the line height attribute. Without line height attribute, he doesn't come to the center. Now, if you noticed here, you can see that my project is centered now. My project within the height, within the line height only, this centering will work. Okay, so the line height and center, that is plays an important role. So that is very important. So another way of generally the align vertical. If you use line height, you can vertical align the component height. parent has to be of more height. In our case, the parent component is of 60 pixel. For that, I want my text is also line height. I attribute, I have given it a 60 pixel. That line height, I'm using a vertical align middle. Then automatically he takes care of. Right. So that is how it is done. Generally, it has to match to the actual height of the component. If I remove height, by default, it sets to the line height. If I just bit in this way, by default, it sets to the line height. It doesn't matter. But if you have a different height, you have to ensure that line height and that is matching. So this header is permanent across all the applications. So we have done this. So register, it will activate. If you are already having an account, please click here. I come to the login page. Here I am having only register component. So today we have just talked about any questions as of now. Please let me know. If you have any questions. So today the major thing is we have seen multiple names of services, injectable services, auth guard checks the validation. If you are not from the right place, I'll reject you. I'll bring you back to the login page. That kind of an authentication is done at the guarding. That is called can activate component in routing. Next is authentication, that is interceptor. Interceptor is nothing but how do you pass the token for every request that you handle. We cannot handle it in the code, but we can pass it through the interceptor so that automatically manages it. And there are several ways the data are managed and secured. So there are several ways it is done. So all can be part of certain things. The data that you want to pass it through encrypted data. You want to encrypt it and then pass it through always. And always it will pass us through encryption. That can be part of interceptor. So it is not only for the header or anything. Any data, raw data you pass, you want to encrypt it, pass the encrypted data to the outside world. That is also possible. Right? So there are several ways that encryptions are done. That is called crypto as a project. Crypto is the project where all this happens. Right? Crypto is another concept where all securities are taken care. It's supported by Angular. It is supported by Node as well. Crypto.js. They call it as crypto.js. Right? That is so. Interceptor is another service. That service HTTP interceptor is the one. Right now, we are not going to get into that. We just first, without any authorization, authentication, we'll try to connect to the DB, register our user, and log in, connect to the DB, check whether the login is valid. If login is valid, you come back to the second page. We call it as home page. That is the one which we are going to take up in today and tomorrow. Today, Postgres, make sure you have the Postgres installed and then you have the node installed in your system. So I leave it at this point today. So today we just talked about all the component that we are going to see and how it is used. We are using some other project. We have just seen how it is done. Right? Tomorrow we'll implement it in our project. Any questions, please let me know. Any questions, please let us know. If Rajesh, Abhirami, if possible, can we create a poll today?
Sir.
Take the people's feedback.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I'll create it now.
Yeah. Any questions, please let us know. This weekend, by this weekend, that means tomorrow end, you should be in a position to have interact between front end till the back end. That means one full scope you might be seeing. After that, we learn more and more topics on Angular material for betterment of the project. So right now we are going with register login. Use the register. User is registered. Login from that registered account. If user is not registered, I will tell him to go and register, or I will not go out of login page. This portion we'll see by tomorrow. We'll try to complete that. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. So